Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Adult Craft Night. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be working on a clay book charm keychain. I'm going to go over everything that's in your kit. You should have 3 colors of some oven baked clay along with some white clay. You should have a paintbrush and some gold paint. One of these 3D printed clay cutters. You should have your keychain, a pencil, and some wax paper and foil. So this is our finished product. So what we're going to do is work on making one book at a time. So you'll need to decide if you want all your books to be the same size. You can make them varying sizes and also varying thickness. So I'm going to start by working on one of the book covers. And I'm using the wax paper just because it's easier to peel the clay off than it is. Sometimes it gets stuck to the table. So if the clay is hard, you may need to work it with your hands a little bit. And we're using this pencil as our rolling pin. And you can even fold it over and do it this way. It was a little bit harder to work with, but then you end up with both sides looking nice and smooth, so that is an option. So you just want it big enough that you'll be able to use this cutter. So it's not going to be very thick. And this is a color change pencil, so if it starts doing this, that's totally normal. Let's see if this is big enough. Almost. At this point, I'm gonna smooth that out on this side. So just press this down. And put away your extra. So you should be able to just peel this up. And I'm going to smooth out the edges of my book cover before I set it aside. Flip this over because it's got a little bit of clay there. I'm going to do the same thing, just make my covers. So for this one, I'm going to show you an example of how to make it a little bit smaller than the other one. So you can cut it out so you have the same shape as the last one, but then you can go back and use the same cutter, just move it over a little bit to cut off some of the clay. So this one will be a little bit smaller. And my last cover. Let's see, I have some black clay. And this one's kind of tough to work with. And you can see that the clay does stain your hands, so if you end up with a dark color of clay, you may need to wash your hands in between making these covers because it will transfer over to the other colors of clay. So this will be my last cover. And I think I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller. Now you have the foil, so this is optional, but this is to add texture to the book. You know how some books have the sort of faux leather covers that have a little bit of texture. You can wrinkle up your foil and then smooth it back out just a little bit. And you don't need a ton of foil. And then just press this into your book cover. So I don't know if you can see, but it just adds something extra to the cover. So I'm gonna just do this one. And now I'm going to pause here because I'm going to be working on the pages next, which uses white clay, so I'm going to need to wash my hands before I start doing that. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the pages of the book. So you just need 3 small balls of white clay, and I did wipe off my wax paper because there was some of the colored clay left on it. So all you're doing is making the little interior piece here. So I'm going to roll this out. And you don't want it too thick. Depending on how many books you have, I mean, you can make as many as you want. But this piece here is where we're going to add the books. So it needs to be this thick, but not more, because then you won't be able to hook this into the clay. So just keep that in mind when you're making your books. So for this, you don't have to roll it out to where it fits all of this. Unless you want, you can do that and then cut it back later, but I'm gonna make this one. So you just want it to be a little bit less than half of whatever size the cover is. So I'll try this out and see how it looks. So it looks like it's a little bit too big up top, so I'm going to trim a little bit from the top. And smooth it out. And see how that looks. Okay, so that looks like it works. I'm going to close this up. And there's my first book. And you should have an extra piece of wire in there. If you want, you can kind of scratch up the white clay to make it look like you've got some pages. So now I'm just going to repeat this and make some pages for my 2 other covers. Okay, so now you are going to arrange your books, and I'll usually make one kind of off center instead of doing just a straight stack of books, but you can stack them up however you want. Okay, and just make sure they're going to fit here. It looks like mine are okay. I could probably even fit one more little book on there. But I'm going to go ahead and leave these. Okay, so you want to stick it straight through. You want to make sure that this wire goes through all of your pieces. So you're just going to push down. And then when you get to the bottom, you'll push it out here. And you want to twist it a little bit. And then pull it back. And this can get baked in the oven. So I've sent you, or I've included the baking instructions. It's 275 degrees and it's 15 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness. Of course, it totally depends on your oven. If you have an oven that runs kind of hot, you may want to check on it. I'm going to go ahead and put these in my toaster oven, because that one does tend to burn things. I'm not going to keep it in as long. I'm going to put it in for about 20 minutes and then go ahead and check on it. Actually, before I do that, I did forget one thing. If you want to add one more detail to your book covers, you can use this wire. And what I'm doing is just making this little indentation here. So you can do that to your covers. Alright. So mine is just going to have that on the top, unless I can squeeze this in here. I think I can. Alright, so now that's going in the oven. So now my piece is out of the oven, and what I'm going to do is paint the details on the spine of the book. Again, this is totally optional, and if you have your own colors of paint at home, you can use that as well. So there is the final project. If you're worried about this coming out, if you have some super glue at home, you can just drop it into that hole there and that'll keep it a little bit more secure. But other than that, you are finished. I hope you enjoyed today's project and I will see you next month.